2 Samuel Chapter 6. And David again gathered all the chosen men of Israel, 30,000. And David rose up and went with all the people who were with him from Baale-judah to bring up from there the Ark of God, which is called by the name of Jehovah of hosts, who is enthroned between the cherubim. And they set the Ark of God upon a new cart and brought it out of the house of Abinadab, which was on the hill. And Uzzah and Ahio, the sons of Abinadab, drove the new cart. And they brought it with the Ark of God out of the house of Abinadab, which was on the hill, and Ahio went before the ark. And David and all the house of Israel played before Jehovah on all manner of instruments of cypress wood, with lyres, and with harps, and with tambourines, and with sistrums, and with cymbals. And when they came to Nachon's threshing floor, Uzzah reached out for the Ark of God and took hold of it, for the oxen had stumbled. And the anger of Jehovah was kindled against Uzzah, and God struck him there for his error, and he died there by the Ark of God. And David was angry because Jehovah had broken forth with an outburst upon Uzzah, and that place has been called Perez Uzzah to this day. And David was afraid of Jehovah that day, and he said, "How shall the Ark of Jehovah come to me?" So David did not want to remove the Ark of Jehovah to himself in the city of David. But David carried it aside to the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite. And the Ark of Jehovah remained in the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite 3 months, and Jehovah blessed Obed-Edom and all his household. And it was told King David, saying, Jehovah has blessed the house of Obed-Edom and all that he has because of the Ark of God. So David went and brought up the Ark of God from the house of Obed-Edom into the city of David with rejoicing. And when those who bore the Ark of Jehovah had gone 6 paces, he sacrificed an ox and a fatling. And David danced with all his might before Jehovah, and David was girded with a linen ephod. So David and all the house of Israel brought up the Ark of Jehovah with shouting and with the sound of the trumpet. And when the Ark of Jehovah came into the city of David, Michal the daughter of Saul looked down through a window and saw King David leaping and dancing before Jehovah, and she despised him in her heart. And they brought in the Ark of Jehovah and set it in its place in the midst of the tent that David had pitched for it. And David offered up burnt offerings and peace offerings before Jehovah. And when David finished offering up the burnt offerings and the peace offerings, he blessed the people in the name of Jehovah of hosts. And he apportioned to all the people, to the whole multitude of Israel, to both men and women, to each one, a cake of bread and a portion of meat and a cake of raisins. And all the people went away, each to his own house. Then David returned to bless his household. And Michal the daughter of Saul went forth to meet David, and she said, How the king of Israel has made himself honorable today, uncovering himself today in the sight of the maids of his servants as some worthless fellow might shamelessly uncover himself. And David said to Michal, It was before Jehovah, who chose me above your father and above all his house, to appoint me ruler over the people of Jehovah, over Israel, so I played before Jehovah. And I will yet be more lightly esteemed than this, and I will be base in my own sight, but by the female servants of whom you have spoken, by them will I be honored. And Michal the daughter of Saul had no child until the day of her death. 2 Samuel Chapter 7. And as the king dwelt in his house and Jehovah gave him rest all around from all his enemies. The king said to Nathan the prophet, See now, I dwell in a house of cedar, but the Ark of God dwells within curtains. And Nathan said to the king, All that is in your heart go and do, for Jehovah is with you. And in that night the word of Jehovah came to Nathan, saying, Go and say to my servant David, Thus says Jehovah, Is it you who will build me a house for me to dwell in? For I have not dwelt in a house, since the day I brought the children of Israel up out of Egypt to this day, but I went about in a tent and in a tabernacle. In all my going about among all the children of Israel, did I ever speak a word to any of the tribes of Israel, whom I commanded to shepherd my people Israel, saying, Why have you not built me a house of cedar? And now thus shall you say to my servant David, Thus says Jehovah of hosts, I took you from the pasture, from following the sheep, that you might be ruler over my people, over Israel. And I have been with you in every place that you have gone and have cut off all your enemies before you, and I will make a great name for you, like the name of the great ones who are on the earth. And I will appoint a place for my people Israel and will plant them there, that they may dwell in their own place and be disturbed no more, and the sons of wickedness will ill-treat them no more as before. Even since the time when I commanded that there be judges over my people Israel, and I will give you rest from all your enemies. Moreover, Jehovah declares to you that Jehovah will make you a house. When your days are fulfilled and you sleep with your fathers, I will raise up your seed after you, which will come forth from your body, and I will establish his kingdom. It is he who will build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I will be his father, and he will be my son. If he commits iniquity, I will strike him with the rod of men and with the stripes of the sons of men. But my loving kindness will not depart from him, as I took it away from Saul, whom I put away before you. And your house and your kingdom will be made sure forever before you, your throne will be established forever. According to all these words and according to this whole vision did Nathan speak to David. Then King David went and sat before Jehovah, and he said, Who am I, O Lord Jehovah, and what is my house that you have brought me this far? And this was yet a small thing in your sight, O Lord Jehovah, but you have spoken also of the house of your servant for a great while to come, and is this the custom for man, O Lord Jehovah? And what more can David say to you? For you know your servant, O Lord Jehovah. For your word's sake and according to your own heart, you have done all this greatness to make your servant know it. Therefore you are great, O Lord Jehovah, for there is none like you, nor is there any God besides you, according to all that we have heard with our ears. And who is like your people Israel, a nation unique on the earth, which God went to redeem to himself as a people in order to make a name for himself and to do for you what is great and awesome for your land and before your people, whom you have redeemed to yourself out of Egypt, from the nations and their gods. And you have established your people Israel to be a people to you forever, and you, O Jehovah, became their God. And now, O Jehovah God, confirm forever the word which you have spoken concerning your servant and concerning his house, and do as you have spoken. And may your name be magnified forever when men say, Jehovah of hosts is God over Israel, and the house of your servant David will be established before you. For you, O Jehovah of hosts, God of Israel, have revealed to your servant, saying, I will build you a house, therefore your servant has found it in his heart to pray this prayer to you. And now, O Lord Jehovah, you are God, and your words are true, and you have spoken this good matter to your servant. Now therefore may it please you to bless the house of your servant, that it may be before you forever, for you, O Lord Jehovah, have spoken it. And with your blessing may the house of your servant be blessed forever. 2 Samuel Chapter 8. And after this David struck the Philistines and subdued them. And David took control of the chief city out of the hand of the Philistines. And he struck Moab. And making them lie down on the ground, he measured them with a measuring line, and he measured out 2 lengths of them to be put to death and 1 full length to be kept alive. And the Moabites became servants to David and brought tribute. Then David struck Hadadezer the son of Rehob, the king of Zobah, when he went to recover his power at the river. And David took from him 1,700 horsemen and 20,000 foot soldiers. And David hamstrung all the chariot horses but left enough of them for 100 chariots. And when the Syrians of Damascus came to help Hadadezer the king of Zobah, David struck 22,000 men among the Syrians. And David put garrisons among the Syrians of Damascus, and the Syrians became servants to David and brought tribute. And Jehovah preserved David wherever he went. And David took the shields of gold that were with the servants of Hadadezer and brought them to Jerusalem. And from Beta and Berothai, cities of Hadadezer, King David took very much bronze. Then when Toi the king of Hamath heard that David had struck down all the army of Hadadezer, Toi sent Joram his son to King David to greet him and congratulate him for fighting against Hadadezer and striking him down, for Hadadezer had been at war with Toi. And in Joram's hand were articles of silver and of gold and of bronze. King David consecrated these also to Jehovah along with the silver and gold that he consecrated from all the nations that he had subdued. From the Syrians and from the Moabites and from the children of Ammon and from the Philistines and from the Amalekites and from the spoil of Hadadezer the son of Rehob, the king of Zobah. And David made a name for himself when he returned from striking down the Syrians in the valley of Salt, that is, 18,000 men. And he put garrisons in Edom, throughout all Edom he put garrisons, and all the Edomites became servants to David. And Jehovah preserved David wherever he went. So David reigned over all Israel, and David executed justice and righteousness for all his people. And Joab the son of Zeruiah was over the army, and Jehoshaphat the son of Ahilud was recorder. And Zadok the son of Ahitub and Ahimelech the son of Abiathar were priests, and Sariah was scribe. And Benaiah the son of Jehoiada was over the Cherethites and the Pelethites, and David's sons were his chief ministers. 2 Samuel Chapter 9. And David said, Is there still anyone left of the house of Saul, that I may show kindness to him for Jonathan's sake? Now there was a servant of the house of Saul, whose name was Ziba, and they called him to David. And the king said to him, Are you Ziba? And he said, I am your servant. And the king said, Is there yet anyone at all of the house of Saul, that I may show the kindness of God to him? And Ziba said to the king, There is still a son of Jonathan, he is crippled in his feet. Then the king said to him, Where is he? And Ziba said to the king, He is just now in the house of Machir the son of Ammiel in Lodabar. And King David sent men and took him from the house of Machir the son of Ammiel, from Lodabar. And Mephibosheth the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, came to David and fell on his face and paid homage. And David said, Mephibosheth. And he said, Your servant is here. And David said to him, Do not be afraid, for I will surely show kindness to you for the sake of Jonathan your father, and I will restore to you all the land of your father Saul, and you will eat food at my table continually. And he paid him homage and said, What is your servant that you should look upon a dead dog like me? And the king called Ziba, Saul's attendant, and said to him, All that belongs to Saul and to all his house I give to your master's son. And you shall work the land for him, you and your sons and your servants, and you shall bring in the produce that your master's son may have food to eat, and Mephibosheth, your master's son, will eat food continually at my table. Now Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. Then Ziba said to the king, According to all that my lord the king has commanded his servant, so will your servant do. And Mephibosheth, said David, shall eat at my table like one of the king's sons. And Mephibosheth had a young son, whose name was Micah. And all who dwelt in the house of Ziba were servants to Mephibosheth. And Mephibosheth dwelt in Jerusalem because he ate at the king's table continually. And he was crippled in both his feet.